What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for a review of the fourth studio album Love and Fear by the Welsh artist known as Marina, now formerly known by her stage name Marina and the Diamonds, and of course known also by her actual name Marina Diamandis. That's a lot of Marinas. Love and Fear comes about 4 years after the release of Froot, an excellent album that did make my year-end best list in 2015. It's a colorful album with brilliant songwriting, a lot of emotion, a lot of heart, and also a strong stand of confidence. It displayed it in the sense that I could feel it. It conveyed a solid message to the listener, and that's why I've continued to come back to that album in the years that have followed. Naturally, I was excited when Marina finally announced new music, and obviously the name change as well, simplifying to just Marina. And this album, Love and Fear, was led off by its lead single, Handmade Heaven. It's an interesting track that I do feel has a lot of beauty to it. I like the fact that Joel Little worked on this track, working in the production department. I'm a big fan of his considering he's worked with Lorde, Taylor Swift, a lot of other artists like Broods that I really do respect and admire, and he brought something interesting to the table, although I wasn't entirely sold yet. I don't feel that that song necessarily possesses something entirely unique to Marina. It's a nice song, but I was hoping that the album would provide something more captivating. Marina's last offering, Froot, was a very focused effort. It's one that honed in on synth pop, even pop rock I would dare say, and this new record, Love and Fear, is unabashedly, unashamedly a pop record. And there's nothing wrong with the word pop. It's not a dirty term. In fact, I love pop when it's done and executed well. If it's a lot of fun to listen to, if it's catchy, if it has a certain string or chord that it strikes with me, then I'm all for it. But I was curious to see what Marina would do with this new style, because with it being 2 discs, I assumed that there would be a lot of different styles incorporated. And there are in some ways. This is a much more danceable, movable album. There's a lot of skittering percussion. There's a lot more pianos than I would have expected on this album, which is a nice touch on some of the tracks. But there's also something that feels robotic about some of the deliveries in places. I obviously do enjoy Marina as a vocalist. She's extremely talented in that department. But I also feel that the delivery of the lyrics, the overall tone of the album, it does feel much more like a formula rather than an actual message and emotion that's being conveyed. Repetition is another big factor that plays into this album. Obviously, it's a pop record, so that's to be expected. Again, it's all about how the artist hones that and obviously uses it, maybe makes it work to their advantage. And here on this album, I'm not exactly entirely convinced that it does play out to her advantage. It's an album that does feel inconsistent. It's not necessarily front-loaded or back-loaded, one disc compared to the other. We've got the Love disc, we've got the Fear disc, 8 songs on each. But I also kind of feel that the themes trickle into each other and bleed into one another so that I can't necessarily tell one from the other. Sticking with the theme of not being able to distinguish tracks from one another, I feel that if you blindfolded me and stuck me in a room and started playing tracks from this album on shuffle, I would have a very hard time guessing which track belonged to which side, Love or Fear, because they do kind of feel similar to each other. Inconsistent and generic tendencies plague parts of this record, although I have to say that it's not a hard pass for me. It's not something where I'm entirely glazing over the record, both parts, and not gleaning any information from it. It's one of those albums that I do feel is more like a cherry picking or an orange tree picking situation. I'll pick off a few that I really do like and are quite delectable, but as I listen through the entire thing, it just feels more bloated and more like a chore rather than an enjoyable experience. The songwriting is unfortunately weaker than what we've come to expect from Marina, who is very gifted at what she does. These songs often don't take full advantage of their theme or the narrative that she's trying to convey. Rather, it kind of gets stuck on a certain idea or a certain mode, and it just pushes that even further until the song just kind of fades out. And I feel the only thing that stuck with me is maybe the repeated verse or the repeated chorus, and I don't feel that I necessarily got what I've gotten from her in the past. I don't want to just sit here and compare this album specifically to Froot, because obviously artists change and evolve. But in this specific case, I feel that it's limited not just because she changed up the genre overall, but because I feel that the counterparts feel weaker. Since this record does have two separate portions, I'm going to talk about tracks from the love section first, and then we'll get into Fear. Orange Trees was released as one of the singles. She's been on Late Night performing this one. She dropped a music video for it, and I think it's an okay song. There's parts that I do like. The overall melody is nice, but I don't care for the orange. It gets aggravating, and that frustrates me even further because I want to like the song, but I hate when there's like elements in the mix that just kind of throw it off for you and something doesn't feel right. It's like when somebody spoils a TV show that you're watching and you know you want to continue watching it anyways, but there's just something where you're like, well, I already know what's going to happen. Do I really want to stick with it? True lands in a similar playing field, although this one plays up the annoying factor a bit more because of the repeated words, the repeated phrases that keep popping up on this one. I don't think the production does it many favors, considering it just kind of feels like sterilized versions of other stuff that we've already heard before, and Marina doesn't come across as distinct here. Fortunately, there are obviously songs on the other side of the spectrum that I do enjoy a whole lot more, and sadly those mostly come towards the end of disc 1, the love section. The two final tracks there, To Be Human and End of the Earth. Those actually feel like they tie a concept together. And To Be Human, obviously once again produced by Joel Little, is an excellent commanding track that sees her taking charge. There's a big swell to the music here that actually makes me feel invested. And then we get to End of the Earth, which does feel like some sort of tangible line of connection, some dialogue there, some actual emotion being packed in. I really don't mind the stuttered vocals at all here. In fact, I feel they add something additional to the mix that it actually needed. I think the production is solid. I think the Marina sounds great on this track, and side 1 closes out with 2 bangers. When you're looking at this as one full album, Love and Fear, it does have a strong section, starting with To Be Human going until Life is Strange. Those 4 songs in particular really stood out to me, caught my ear and eye just because of the fact that they're all of much higher quality than the beings that are surrounding them. Life is Strange has really been stuck in my head. That's a well done song. I love the strings section that's going in the background on that one. I think that Marina's vocal performance is really hooky, and Joel Little there to save the day on production once again, making this feel like it's popping off, but also kind of subdued, calm, and confident at the same time. We get that high peak with Life is Strange, and unfortunately it starts to dip off after that. I feel that tracks like You are so repetitive that they're throwaway, and also Emotional Machine. For what it's trying to say, it just feels more robotic, and I don't think that for a song like that, it should come across in that manner. The attitude of No More Suckers felt like it was trying too hard, and while I appreciate the closing track Soft to Be Strong, it is an improvement. It again doesn't leave anything with me that feels all that complex or anything like we haven't heard from her before. Love and Fear is a complicated album for me because on one hand, I do enjoy a decent amount of the songs. I've got a good respect for them and I definitely vibe with them. But on the other, I have to acknowledge the fact that not many of these songs feel very memorable at all. I feel that there were a lot of hands pulling things in different directions, but also kind of sterilizing at the same time and keeping it bland and middle of the road. As a result of that, this album has me divided and landing at a light 3 out of 5 for my personal score. Of course, that's just my opinion, so I'd love to know what you think as well. Sound off in the comments section down below. If you haven't heard this record yet, then go click the link to stream it in the description, and of course, leave a like on this review. Don't forget to subscribe for the love of music. We talk about it every single week on both of my channels. If you want to see my review of Froot, then tap right here, or tap right over here for another recent review I did on the channel. All of my social media accounts, including my Patreon, can be found in the description down below, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.